Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Marketing Monday. It's our first live Market Shift webinar of 2026. We're excited that you're here, and if you're here to talk marketing, you're in the right place. We know that shift happens, and by shift, I mean S-H-I-F-T, to make sure that if I'm not enunciating correctly or well enough, you guys are understanding what I'm saying. Shift with an F happens, and our Market Shift team's here to help you. We want to make sure that you're ready to quickly pivot, adapt, and capitalize on any shifts in the marketplace by using our marketing resources and expertise so you can capture any new marketing opportunities that come your way. And today I'm here with my friend and colleague, Ed Hidden, our Senior Manager of Marketing Solutions for Digital Media. Ed, how's it going?
Not too bad. Yeah, tense webinars. Like we had the dreaded technical issues like right before it was going on. So I'm excited to see that that you were able to make it back and I wasn't orphaned all on my own here.
Yeah, otherwise Ed's going to be stuck talking all about our topic today, all by himself if my camera goes out at any point today. And today, we're talking lead generation and lead nurturing. Two very similar but different things, and we're going to get into that in just a minute. And before we get into talking about our main topic today, we're also going to be sharing updates on new resources available to you in the MarketSHIFT web portal on dnh.com. So before we get into anything, here's a look at today's agenda. First, we're going to have Ed go over some of the new campaign kits and resources that we've developed that are available on MarketSHIFT. We are going to go through our main topic for today, again, lead generation and lead nurturing. And I want to remind you that if you have a question at all during any part of today's webinar, there's a Q&A widget on the left side of your screen. So drop your questions, comments, or anything that you want to call out, any expertise that you want to add from your experience, add it to the Q&A. Ed and I are going to see that throughout today's live webinar, and we'll respond to you directly. We may respond verbally in front of the entire group, or we may ask you for follow-up to drop something additional in that Q&A widget today to keep the conversation going. There's no such thing as a dumb question. We want to hear any questions that you have, because odds are, if you have that question, someone else attending today might have that as well. And finally, if you catch this on demand, remember that you can always contact us at MarketSHIFT@dnh.com, and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. The final reminder that I'll have before I turn it over to you, Ed, is that down at the bottom of your screen, if you're an attendee today, there are reaction emojis. So if you like something that we're saying, hit the appropriate emoji. If you don't like something that we're saying, there might be a negative emoji down there. I think we mentioned this last time, Ed. Marketers love validation. So if our attendees here today want to give us some validation that we're on the right track with some of the content we're delivering, we'd love to hear. So, Ed, I think it's your turn. I'm going to hand it over to you to jump into our MarketSHIFT web portal updates and to show off some of the new tools and resources that we have available.
Sure. Yeah, I just got a noticed in the team chat. We got a note from our producer who said that we don't have the frowny face emoji, so we don't have to worry about that one going on. So we're only taking good feedback. Oh my. But yeah, so our MarketSHIFT update. So like, what's new? What's going on? So we have links to a lot of these resources already available in this webinar platform in the resources section. We have new toolkits from device management, Pro AV and collaboration, Microsoft Copilot. We have updated line cards from the US and Canada that you can download and utilize for your business. You can brand them for yourself as to all of the products that D&H offers. There's also a previous webinar that, resource that we have in there for email marketing best practices. So that was a tag along that went along with a webinar that we had where it was just kind of like a checklist to keep it ready for making sure that you kind of follow all those things as much as you can. Additionally, we have another resource for this webinar. We'll show you a preview of it today. I'm not sure if it's fully in the portal quite yet or not, but it'll also be in this in the resources section as well. So, and as always, check back frequently. We're always putting out new content out there. You don't have to wait for us to tell you about them on these webinars. So we're continually building that out to try and keep stuff that's important and relevant for you guys. So, and again, as a reminder, you can watch last quarter's webinar. Those are all available in the training and resources section at www.dnh.com/MarketSHIFT or on the Canada website at dnh.ca/MarketSHIFT. So we've kept all those the same, and there's topics such as like email marketing, best practices. There's an Ask Me Anything, using data, AI, social marketing, scrappy marketing, and knowing your audience. And we're finding this, we did this topic today, was, we found a number of spots to call back to previous ones. So we'll be touching on things that you'll want to go to that resource to be able to dive deeper into those areas that are important to you. And as usual, before we get into today's topic, if you have any suggestions of things that we're missing or things that would be helpful to either put on this show, this webinar, or whether it's on the resources themselves, you can reach out to MarketSHIFT@dnh.com and let us know. We'd love to hear how we're doing, how we're supporting your business, how you guys are utilizing these resources, as well as anything that we can help provide to make things a little bit better for you.
And speaking of hearing how we're doing, Ed, I just want to let you know that 6 of our attendees were nice enough to give us a pat on the back with an emoji already. So, the validation.
I'll take that. With the stress we had right at the top of the hour, I'm loving that we have that. So that's good. So while we dive right into the topic, I'm going to start off right by giving a bit of an introduction to what we're going to be talking about. A housekeeping note is, like, we're talking about lead generation and lead nurturing, but wanted to mention that we are taking a marketing approach to this conversation. We will focus on how marketing connects to sales and how the two really have to work together synergistically to get the most out of those lead generation and nurturing strategies. But our attention is to be focused on a marketing qualified lead rather than a sales qualified lead. They're very different. Leads move from one to another. And you had a anecdote about sales leads.
Well, yeah, we're going to talk MQLs and SQLs, marketing qualified and sales qualified leads, in just a little bit. But I think that anybody who is here that is dedicated to marketing will be saying in the back of their heads, well, all of our marketing qualified leads, sales hates. And then sales is going to, be saying something in the back of their head that, all of the marketing qualified leads that we get are not sales qualified leads, and they're never any good. So there's a constant battle between the two. So that's why we're adding this disclaimer at the front end of the webinar to say, we're taking a marketing approach here today. And at that point, when you hand them off to sales, that's a huge collaboration effort that you'll have to undertake with your sales teams and your marketing teams internally, if you are split apart that way, if you have 2 separate departments there. But we'll cover that later.
Yeah. So as we dive into the topic on marketing focused lead generation, I'm going to ask the question to you, Dave. What is it and why is it important?
Yeah. So to set the stage here, lead generation is the process or the strategy to attract and capture individuals or organizations that are showing interest in a product, solution, or service that you're offering. And then the ability, when you capture their attention, to then also capture information on those individuals, that really is what turns into your lead. You can have theoretical leads, but if you don't have any information or any way to contact them, are they really a lead? And so in marketing context, a lead is typically generated when a prospect, and again, marketing approach here, a lead is typically generated when a prospect, somebody who's new to your business, or even an existing customer who might be interested in a new offering from your business, when they submit a form, when they attend an event, when they engage with content that you have gated where they have to pay with their information to download something, when they respond to an email, or in some more complex workflows, then we're talking about services that you employ that compare traffic to a page and then can go through like data enrichment and then can line up to a social media profile to identify who that lead is. So really at a high level, lead generation and leads It's just the art and the science of mining for potentially new business and potentially new customers. And so, Ed, now I'm going to throw this back to you. So, when we're thinking in terms of lead generation and the importance of a lead generation program for a business and for growth for a business, why is it important?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's very important for the growth because it helps you identify new customer segments that you haven't gotten into quite yet, and it helps you expand your customer base, to give you a much broader pool of clientele to work with. And they're really, yeah, the marketing qualified leads is really kind of like a top of funnel activity that really feeds, that those new people into the funnel to get them down into, learning more about your business, becoming engaged with the products and services that, you have to offer. That migrates them more to a sales lead, and then, hopefully a strong relationship, to build on.
Yeah, and when we're talking about top of funnel and what we're talking about identifying potential buyers, really grabbing those leads' attention and then putting them into the funnel where you can then qualify them for sales. It's really important at the beginning that everybody has a solid strategy with who they're actually trying to go after. One of the reasons why we're always going to see this discrepancy between whether or not marketing qualified leads are actually good for sales to follow up on is that if those leads that are being collected by marketing, a landing page, a form, an event, if they're not falling within your ideal customer profile, your ideal target audience for your business and your solutions and offerings, then odds are that those buyers are not going to match up with who your sales team wants to talk to. So I'm going to make note of a previous webinar that we've done. It's called Knowing Your Audience. I would highly recommend that if you're interested in creating a strategy for your ideal customer profile and identifying who that customer is, what that potential customer looks like, I would encourage you to go back and watch that webinar that we have posted on the MarketSHIFT websites on dnh.ca and dnh.com. Just remember that strategy should always be defined before you start anything tactical, and that strategy is going to guide your lead generation tactics. So it's very important that you have that ideal customer profile, that ICP, set up so you know exactly who you're pursuing.
Cool. Yeah, so here we're going to be moving into the key channels for lead generation, and there's a lot of different opportunities, when this comes about. We're going to start out with the organic methods, up front, and I love to refer to these because I really look at these as kind of like that base layer that you kind of want to build a lot of your campaigns and everything on. So the first one's going to be SEO. If you're not familiar with the term, it's search engine optimization. And really that's a good ideal starting spot when you're building your website to optimize it as best as you can, for search engines to be able to read it and pull out material. When most people are looking for information about something, they're going to a search engine, and the search engine's directing them to somebody or some business. And that really becomes the core of where you're going to answer questions for the customer and collect things. So SEO is very important. You can do those free. You can do researches. There's a lot of websites, a lot of YouTube videos, a lot of things out there for improving your SEO. And there's also tools that you could purchase, but you can do a lot on your own to get things started, focusing on your, we'll come more into this a little bit later in the presentation, but it's answering the questions that your customers are asking when they come to your website. So if they're coming to your website, they're looking for some sort of information. And as much as you can put yourself in the mind of those customers that are coming to it and answer those questions and put those questions on paper, so to speak, that makes it even easier for a search engine to find those answers. So that when people are answering questions, it knows, oh, okay, this was answered over here, and it can include that in its answer set. And that goes to our next topic that we were going to talk about is content marketing and blogs. Again, I'm going to refer back to our MarketSHIFT resources. We have a number of topics where we've included blog posts. The toolkits is where you want to find those, where we'll have all sorts of different material inside of those. Some of those are blog articles, or you can write them your own if you have stuff that's specific to yourself. This is a direct extension of those SEO efforts, and it goes into adding more content. It's kind of like the question after the question. Like maybe someone goes to the website and they're like, "Oh, what do you offer?" It's like you see what they offer. Well, then your blogs can kind of take over that detail of what you offer in certain things, and you can display your expertise. That again, also the SEO. It's another form of doing SEO for it.
And if you don't mind me jumping in, if I'm not mistaken, sure. Content and marketing blogs, say you're using a WordPress platform, having more blogs on your website can actually improve your SEO, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's the more opportunities you have on your website to answer the question in a non-repetitive format, the more that search engine is going to classify you as an expert. So continual articles, about the different types of services that you're offering and how they change over time, and different things, like all the things that you would explain to a customer about your business, if you took the time and explained that in your blogs, so that, even if you're just telling yourself you're writing stuff down and you're like, oh, who's going to come to this and read it, or any of that kind of, the bots will be reading it and helping people that are asking questions. So there is a lot of benefit into it, even if you are struggling to see if you're struggling to see the ROI, stick with it, because it will come back to you from other things. So those are kind of like the free areas that we talk about. And I say free because you're paying for your website. You may pay for services to help with some of these things, but the most investment that you invest in these is your time. And then we can move into some of the paid methods. Those are your pay-per-click advertisements, display ads, sponsor content. These are cool because they can give you a little bit more control over the lead that you're looking for. A lot of the systems like Google Ads, when you go into it, you can set up, you actually start with your own website or your own blog or your own landing page to answer the questions that you're hoping for this campaign to answer. And then you would go to Google Ads and put in, this is where they're going, and this is who I want to reach. These are the types of people that I want to reach. And it helps you calculate your budget of how much you're willing to spend to reach those people. It'll give you a quote of how many people it thinks that it will reach with that campaign. Mm-hmm. And then it continues to flow those traffics once you launch it, to get people over to that website. And it's just similar to sponsored content, and same with display ads. You could do that through either Google networks, DoubleClick networks. There's lots of different places. Maybe it's an industry trade area that you want to go ahead and leverage, where you want to focus, that spending on who you're trying to reach. And a number of the socials too, they're also including different markets that you can reach through those. So, there's lots of opportunity in that, and that could be a whole episode in and of itself of all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, events and webinars. They're just like this one. They're lead magnets for businesses, because you have that registration up front to get people in the door, and it gives you that first connection to be able to, you're giving them a little bit of information, and then you can go back and help them with whatever questions they have after that.
Yeah, and I think to add on to all of this, if our audience didn't notice, these are all really digital marketing focused lead generation methods, either organic or pay-per-click. We're really focusing on the digital side of things today, and in fact, that's what we're going to go into in just a moment, is the tools and technologies that are involved in creating an ongoing lead generation engine, we'll say. So when we're talking webinars like this, or even events, there's always a digital registration page, and that's what's churning through the lead collection process and delivering them to hopefully a sales team. But as we move into the tools and technologies conversation, and before we get into the how to do this portion of this webinar, I want to direct everybody to the resources section within the webinar environment. So if I'm not mistaken, if you're looking at the webinar environment as an attendee today, on the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see a resources widget with a number of links and listings to the right. The very first one should be a PDF download of the resource that we've made available to you guys today. So this is going to be what, if you would like to, what you can follow along with for the rest of the webinar. It's just a two-sided PDF, and it's going to go through a couple of things related to lead capture, landing pages, and then lead nurturing at the end. So moving on, we want to talk about how you're supposed to capture leads from generating, or the leads that you're generating from these key channels that Ed just covered. You may have been thinking, well, you know, we can put together SEO and we can put together blogs and we can have all this content out there, but how is it actually collecting lead data? Well, it's not initially. And so that's why it's important that you have the structure in place and certain tools and technologies in place to begin identifying and capturing who those leads are. And so not everything that we talked about, or that Ed just talked about before, is going to do that, have that lead data capture process incorporated into it. And so that's why in just a moment, we're going to talk about the different mechanisms that you can use to capture leads. So how do you capture them? The first thing that we're going to say is every website should have a contact form. And I believe that's just best practices, that every website today should have some sort of contact form, not just email me and then it pops up a new email, correct?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for that too. You know, there's a lot of bots that go out and will scan websites to be able to build their spam library of things. But the nice thing with the custom form or the custom contact us form is it allows you to tailor those questions that you specifically want to answer for someone. Mm-hmm. And if you're a larger company that has, you know, different markets, different departments, different things like that, it kind of helps that person that's collecting all of that information to triage it and get it to that right spot. So yeah, a contact form is a really good way to get started because you can add a lot of beneficial, you know, info to that.
Yeah, and if you're using something like a Wix or a WordPress or a Squarespace platform already for your website, a lot of that stuff's drag and drop and easy to manually update in the interface. So if you don't have an actual form for contact on your website, it's an easy slam dunk addition to your site, and that's an easy way for you to start capturing potential leads. Another way that you can do it is gated or what some people say is pay-for-play access to content. And that might sound a little bit spammy, and by no means is it the official technical term for it. But think about when you go to a website or you click on an ad from LinkedIn, and it says, hey, we have all of these resources for you. And then you go to the page, and it says, well, we need your name, email address, and phone number first. Well, in order to get the content that you went there looking for, you have to pay with your information to play with the content. And so that's what's known as gated or pay-for-play content. You can choose to do this as a way to offer an exclusive resource that you or your business might have. And if you feel it's valuable, if you think that people clicking on an ad or clicking to go to that page think that resource's value is perceived as being high. So that's an easy way that you can collect information and really figure out who's very interested in the specific service or solution that you're offering that's related to that resource. It's not always the best strategy to use if you're going to use it over and over and over again. But if it's more specific content, or if it's something that is more educational in nature, like an ebook, and somebody who downloads it, you could easily qualify them, or sales could easily qualify them as being very interested in something, then that's a good use case for a gated or pay-for-play strategy. Other ways that you can look at capturing are more associated to like Google Ads and social to generate leads. those you need to figure out how to get contact information from them for follow-up. So a click directly from social or a click directly from Google may not, or may not give you information on who that lead actually is. Ed, you might be more familiar with what information typically gets passed through from a click from social or from Google search. Do you have any context that you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the, if you're a business that's attached to a domain, or, if you have a specific IP address, a lot of times you can see that in the statistics about what type of customer it is. And sometimes those will also pop up with, if you have an email address that is specific to your business, that's an easy way to see that. Probably as you move into the other parts that we were going to talk about, like the data enrichment services, that's probably where you're more likely to get much better information. We've looked at some where you could plug in a JavaScript on your website. So as traffic comes in from visitors, you're able to get publicly available Dun & Bradstreet information about them, as well as that person's email address, if it's public, as to what their role is. So that's the type of things, if this is an area that you want to expand on, you might want to look at what offerings are out there for those different third-party marketing and data enrichment to be able to see, the things that are going to be useful to you.
Yep. And I want to go to a question in the Q&A really quick before we move on in another topic here. Rodney is asking, how do you get around the input of spam information on website forums? And I think that a lot of our partners who are maybe using like the free forms functionality within some platforms, they may experience a higher volume of spam coming through those forums because there aren't many security features to the free version of those. Those may actually incur an upgrade fee to be able to get Google CAPTCHA services on those. Is that correct, Ed?
Yeah, and the other piece of it too is I've also seen people falsifying information, like false email address and things like that. It's the same thing as like someone that puts a business card on a fishbowl at a show, and they have a fake address or something like that, where they're giving fake information to try and get something. I think that's probably less likely to happen. In these areas. And actually one practice I've seen with a number of, if that is the concern that you're looking at, Rodney, one thing that I've seen is, like Dave was saying, if there's an ebook or something like that, that you're going to deliver to someone who's going to pay for play, give you their contact information. The content is sent to the person that put it in. It doesn't automatically deliver it on the web page. It delivers it through the email. So if they're providing false information to avoid spamming or other sorts of things like that in the future, you can avoid it by taking that bit of a practice on it.
Yeah. And as far as the forms go and the CAPTCHA functionality, most forms today, they're going to have that Google CAPTCHA. I know that there are different versions of it, but the Google CAPTCHA is the stuff at the bottom that makes the person submitting the form do something that only a human should be able to do with this form. So whether it's like sliding something, whether it's checking all of the boxes in the grid that have a picture of a car in it that we all absolutely hate and it drives us crazy.
Is that a car or not?
Yeah. Or if it's the numbers of the letters that are kind of skewed in the image and you have to type in manually what it is. Those are the Google CAPTCHA services that can typically be included with forms, but oftentimes in those web platforms where you may have your site, like in a WordPress, the free version of a forms functionality may not feature that. So for a small upgrade fee, you may be able to employ the services of the Google CAPTCHA functionality. That's not going to break your bank at all. It's going to be a couple bucks per month.
My absolute favorite one is the simple button that says verify that you're a human. I'm like, a bot is asking me if I'm not a bot? This is just like a weird scenario to be part of.
This is why we shouldn't be afraid of AI yet, right?
Exactly.
So anyway, I think we're gonna move into just a really quick overview of some of the tools that you can also use. So we've gone over a couple of them already. Um, some things that I want to mention. Everybody should have a website. Every business should have a website. No matter what your business is, uh, you should always have a digital presence on the web. You should also always have a social presence, at least on LinkedIn. It's become an expectation. And in fact, many businesses look less trustworthy if they do not have a social presence. So, first thing is your website. Second thing is a social presence, at least on LinkedIn. The third piece of technology that you should have, if you don't have today, is a CRM tool. Whether it's something that your sales team uses, whether it's something that your marketing team adds, or that your company as a whole adds, somewhere that you can not just maintain customer information, but somewhere that you can capture lead information or store lead information. It's not just important to capture leads through your website and then just let them sit there on a forum. You might get an email notification on it. Where you're going to see a real benefit is if you can connect the form on your website to your CRM system, because at that point, then you can automate the delivery of that lead into some sort of campaign or a follow-up, or in delivering it to a sales rep who owns that region or territory, or even getting it to somebody who needs to do more qualification, needs to do more profiling information on that lead. So with that CRM tool or that marketing automation platform, something like a HubSpot, that opens up a world of possibilities for you. So you're creating this lead engine. You're not just creating a lead form, but you're actually creating the engine in the background that is actively taking the lead data that you're collecting and then putting it into another workflow. You don't want to have to manage leads by spreadsheet. Say your website has a great landing page and you get clicks from social media every day and you have 100 people downloading it per week. Do you have the time to go through 100 individual leads all by yourself if you're a smaller company and to qualify each one before you hand it off to sales? The answer is probably no. Nobody has time for that. And so if you are able to use something like HubSpot or another CRM or automation tool in the background, that's where you see a huge benefit in your lead generation strategies by employing a tool like that.
We just had a question in the chat from Ash Adams, who was saying the exact same thing that you had just answered about, spreadsheets and CRMs. And it's like, my personal feeling is, when you're a smaller business of fewer people, I think the digital tools become even more important.
Yeah.
Because it just allows you to lift a lot easier than it is if you're trying to do it manually.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you say Excel and Shopify are the two things that you use. That's great. If that process works and it's only, you and 2 employees, great. A CRM tool may come in handy to store the customer data and then to eventually follow up with leads en masse, depending on how much you need to scale that program. So today it might be manageable working out of a spreadsheet. If you take all of the great advice Ed and I are giving you today and employ that into a new lead generation strategy, and then your lead generation engine blows up and you have 30, 40, 50 leads a week, and you can no longer do that with the 2 employees, that's where an additional digital tool, that's where CRM, that's where some kind of automation may come into play. I would also encourage everybody, and Ed and I know, some of the capabilities here, but probably aren't as well versed. If you're a Microsoft Copilot user, if you have that for your business, there are ways that you can automate certain workflows, or you can create certain agents. And that could be something based on if you have a notification being delivered to your inbox with a certain subject line from your lead form. You can then have Copilot automate the next action. And so you can kind of piece together what that engine looks like, simplifying the process for you in the long run, simplifying some of the smaller tasks for you in the long run. But it's something that you definitely want to consider if you're looking to mature that lead generation engine. So, Ed, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you now, because we want to get into lead capture forms and best practices for landing pages. And this will be a larger topic for today. So I'll let you take it away.
Sure. Yeah. So you probably hear us talk about landing pages, and frequently that becomes a center of a topic. And the big question that I've heard from people is, how does that differ from your website? And it is a big difference. They can live as part of your existing website, or they can stand alone from the website, either on the same domain, or you can employ other services. Some of the ones that we talked about today, where you can go ahead and build these landing pages. So, what is a landing page? It's think of it like a leave behind or a one pager. If you're familiar with the print side of the world, it's a one self-contained piece of information. A page, it could be short, it could be long, but it is distilled down to answering the focus of the campaign that you're looking for. If you were talking about a type of services, and you were ranked on one of the business evaluation platforms, and you wanted to provide a white paper that evaluated everyone and said that you were high on it. You might want to build a specific landing page that just talks about that. You should also refer to that content as well in your blog section. But the landing page format gives you a really good front door that you can control that conversation, and keep it where it's focused directly on that topic, and provide information to get back to the main website, but not distract your site visitor with all of the information that you have on your website already. So you don't want someone to come in, if they're looking at this specific information example that I was looking at, you don't want them to come in and then, oh, well, there's services. I'll go to services and go, start looking at different things. When you have acquired a lead from a specific task or campaign, you want to keep them focused on that. And a little bit later, we'll go through with some of, I'll show some examples of those. But that's kind of like they can have videos on it. They can have articles. It can have links to ebooks. It can have all sorts of information to it.
Yeah, it's all very procured and strategic. So,
yes.
And I want to add to something that you just said, just really quickly. The difference between that landing page and your home page for the website is exactly what I was saying. A landing page is simple and strategic. One call to action, one button, or if you have multiple buttons, they're all going to the same place. And Ed made the example of, well, you can drive to your homepage, but what if they see something about a service up at the top that's not your strategic focus? Well, they're going to get the shiny object syndrome, and they're going to go to that. Or they may click on what you wanted them to click on, but they may get distracted by five or 10 different calls to actions on a homepage, and they may go away from what you're trying to drive them to. So a landing page is a way for you to focus on something very, very specific, a very specific solution or service, and driving them down a very procured path that you have to find for them to take. And you kind of strip away all of the extra stuff at that point, and get them further and further and further in really the nurturing process at that point, so they're not being distracted by everything else, and you get them sucked into the content that you're developing.
Yeah, and we had a question in the chat too, where someone was saying, could the landing page be in the form of a blog? Well, you can have a blog if you don't have the capability to do a standalone landing page, or maybe you don't have the scope of your business to be able to curate a number of different campaigns. You could use, a form in a blog as a landing of someone coming from a link to a certain spot. Generally, you start to find that if you use a dedicated landing page that's dedicated to that campaign, it can tend to focus someone's attention a lot more, like David just talked about.
Yeah. And we're going to show you examples. Ed's going to show you examples in just a minute.
Yeah. So then, as I move on away from the landing page, we can go to the form and survey solution. So we've talked a number of times about collecting information from your site visitor that you're looking to generate as a lead. Some of the best practice tips that we could offer is only collect the information that you need or want to know. Don't collect a lot of different things that that might be good to know down the road or this or that. It reduces the friction for the user that's going to be inputting the information. You're not asking them to invest a lot of time to provide the information to be able to get a little bit of information from you. So that's probably the big one that I would say is be mindful of what you're asking someone, and do you really need to know that at this stage of the lead nurturing process? And if it's a survey, you might want to share some instant results from it. That's kind of a good way of keeping someone's attention. So if it's something that's opinion based and someone gives you, they fall in the middle of it, and you go, well, hey, a lot of people fall in the middle of it, and those people tend to need our services this way, so you can use it as a way to continue that conversation and help get them to think about ways to utilize your services. And clear call to actions is a big one. I can't stress this one enough. As Dave was talking about the dedicated landing pages, having a single clear CTA is probably the biggest thing that you could do to make the effectiveness of a landing page. It's the not giving a lot of options. It's like, this page is meant to do this, and if you want this answer, here's where you're going, sort of thing. It's not a choose your own adventure at that point. You're following on the adventure that's curated for you.
You are choosing their adventure. That's what your job as a marketer is, to choose their adventure for them. Give them the illusion of free will in this situation. You have free will to click the button I want you to. So after we have all of that together for the landing pages, and actually at this point, did you want to share some of the examples now, or was that going to be later on, Ed?
Actually, we can kind of just touch on these few topics that we have here, like, as we're saying about like the bare minimum of getting started. We've talked about it already. It's the website. It's making sure that it's SEO optimized. You're adding blogs help build that out, and lead capture forms and contact forms on your website, as well as building that social media presence that you had mentioned. And again, we have a social media marketing webinar available on the MarketSHIFT website. And you went over CRM and marketing automation pretty well. And we also touched on that on our Scrappy Marketing webinar. Did you have anything else that you wanted to add to that, Dave? Or
the Scrappy Marketing webinar, if you're in a smaller team in a smaller company, limited resources, limited budget, and you're trying to piece things together to make it work, that's a really great webinar for you to go back and listen or watch on demand, because it helps you think through the different opportunities you have using the limitations that you have surrounding you, but making the most of them. So I would encourage you, especially when it comes to CRM and marketing automation, take a look at that Scrappy Marketing webinar that we have on demand. And of course, if you have any questions or want to consult with us afterwards, MarketSHIFT@dnh.com, and we're happy to work directly with you.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, I'll jump into some of those examples that we were talking about. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Make sure I have the correct window.
See if we can avoid another IT glitch here.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll stay on the call for this.
For what Ed was alluding to while he was pulling this up, as we were getting ready to start this webinar, about 5 minutes before, my camera decided to stop working. So it went through a full system restart so I could get back here just in time. So Ed, it looks like you're sharing your screen. Go for it.
Yeah, so I'm starting out with the resource that we were talking about that's in the web environment. And this is, it's a practical guide to lead nurturing and lead generation and nurturing. And this kind of gives you a rough wireframe of what a high converting landing page could look like. And we focus on the different types of elements, the different needs that you have with it, like we were talking about, a value driven headline, minimal distractions, engaging visuals, and of course, scannable content. So you could zoom down this page and get you could understand what the page is about at a glance. And this kind of is over here is that wireframe of that. And you can go through this resource later and you can hold on to this, and it'll help you focus on getting through that funnel. Some examples of ones that we had pulled out from some websites that we were looking at. There was this one here. I actually zoomed out a little bit. There's Border Buddy, and it starts out very easy, clear headline. Starts out with two actions. I want to import a vehicle. I want to import any item. And you have straight up, very quick, very succinct, very straight to the point. You have a call for a free quote directly right there at the top, and then that little contact information form that's pretty basic to get someone started. So this is an example of a really strong landing page, in my opinion. You can see if we go out to the website for this business, we'll probably not really be able to distinguish a big difference between these. So that's another example that we're going to talk about as well, is like they should have the same branding and the same styling. It should look separate from your website, but also shouldn't look like it should be from a different company. So it's okay that it doesn't have where to go. It doesn't have a search button. It doesn't have all the other pieces of it. And in most examples, that little logo will take you back out to the main website and get you out of that landing area to allow someone to have that more information experience that maybe they're looking at. And then Jet Pet was another one that we had noticed as we were looking through for some examples of stuff. This one I pulled in here because right in the hero section at the top, they have a very nice, non-intrusive way of doing a discount where, asking a few little quick questions about your dog. It's a two-step form. I would guess that on the next page, they've personalized the form a little bit more, and then collecting their personalized information that they're able to go ahead and send that discount over to them. So I thought this was an interesting way to do that. And as well, you can see that they offer the different, the videos as well as the content to really understand what they do.
Yeah, and Ed, I want to just say something else while you're on this page, because as you were showing it off, I was counting the number of times you scrolled to get to the bottom of the page. And I think that's important to cover with everybody here today, that if you're building a landing page and somebody has to scroll once or even multiple times to even see that call to action that you're trying to drive your potential customers to, then you need to rethink the formatting of your landing page. The call to action, whether it's a button up at the top that goes down to a form at the bottom, or whether it's a button that goes to another page, regardless if it's the lead generation form or if it's a landing page or another page on your website, that call to action should always be visible before somebody has to scroll. If your visitors have to scroll in order to see that call to action, that's a big red flag on any landing page. So keep that in mind. You can have a lot of information below that call to action. And in fact, long scrolling pages have been and will be for a while popular to a lot of people browsing the web. But it's important that you still keep that call to action very clear and up at the top. And then if you have a long scrolling page, make sure you repeat that same call to action multiple times as you're going down the page.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because the next example that I have is a very, very, very long page to show what it could look like with a lot of information. And actually, let's take a look and see if they heeded some of the advice that you were talking about. I'll just zoom out to give you an idea of how much information is there, and there is quite a lot. But as we zoom into right there in the header information, you're starting right out with, that call to action. Give me your name, give me your email, give me your phone number, and we'll enter you for an opportunity to win whatever credit towards the tuition at this. And, it starts right out at the gate. And then as we scroll down the page, we continue to provide more information, or they continue to provide more information, like the answering. This is a classic example of the stuff that I was talking about earlier. It's like the asking the question and then answer the question. As someone's scrolling down through, they're like going, oh yeah, how do I pay for the university? Or you make it very easy for someone to find the information that they're looking for as they're scrolling for it. And I'm kind of curious to see if we got another CTA towards the bottom. See if they, so we have another CTA if they've made it all the way to the bottom. And maybe at that point, that would be a good opportunity where you want to go ahead and um, uh, maybe you register that they've clicked on this form, and you go, okay, well, that person was a full scroller to give us information. So maybe you can use that to, as a way to qualify someone, give them a little bit more points so that you can bump them up the funnel and say, yeah, these people are a little, they learned everything. So get out of my screen share there. And there's all sorts of wonderful, uh-oh, did we lose Dave? We might have lost Dave. I'm going to go ahead and continue, and we'll see if Dave can get joined back in with us. So those are some examples of the different ways that someone can utilize those landing pages. Let me check my notes here for a second. And no, I don't have any information on this for right now. So I'm going to try to keep going with the show here and see if we can get Dave back with us. There was a question in the chat about, will we get this as a recording? Yes, absolutely. This entire webinar will be available on demand. Usually they're about a full day after the end of the broadcast. But let's continue moving on for a little bit of this. So our next topic we're going to cover is what is lead nurturing? And that is really where you kind of define that importance of converting the lead into a customer. So after you've generated and qualified that lead, this is kind of like that area where it's next. And this area, we're starting to get a little bit more into the buyer journey. And this is going to be an area that we were going to rely a little bit more on Dave's expertise for. But I'm going to move a little bit further down this list and talk about some of the effective lead nurturing strategies. We have, for email marketing, those are often going to be in the form of a drip campaign or segmenting and personalizing those emails that you collect from these forms that we were just taking a look at. When we say a drip campaign, those are emails that will just continue to go out on a certain cadence. And as people respond to those with different engagement, you can give them into a different tier of a campaign so that you can they become a more qualified lead. We also have a previous webinar on email marketing best practices where we can go into this topic much, much, much deeper. Some other lead nurturing strategies that are pretty good is retargeting ads. So this is paid campaigns where you would go to either a service or places like Google Ads, and you can share with them people that have visited your website, whether it's a lead, whether it's an IP address, and you can continue to market to those people that have seen those ads or clicked on those ads and gone, linked through to other things. And then again, continuing to grow your content marketing, with blogs, white papers, videos to educate and lead, as well as social proof is a big one. And this also falls into two different areas of the organic and paid. You can start off with putting a lot of organic content out there to grow that social following, but you will continue to benefit by engaging with some of the paid campaigns and boosting certain posts and content to be able to draw in more of that audience. And again, we have another webinar that we've done in the past on social media marketing. So that's another good resource to go ahead and look for.
All right, Ed, I think I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're with us. Awesome. I was keeping rolling. So and it was fun.
I know you're doing a great job covering.
I did jump over a little bit of what lead nurturing and the buyer's journey is. I kind of went directly into some of those lead nurturing strategies. And was about ready to jump into the pitfalls, but if we want to back up and cover any of the things that you had in mind that you wanted to cover, this is probably a perfect opportunity to do that.
Sure, and I'll go over the buyer journey stuff in just 1 minute. So when we're talking about a buyer journey, we're talking about the process it takes to get somebody from a lead to the point where they're ready to purchase. And this is not always a linear process, meaning that you're not always going to run into somebody submitting a lead form and then you looking at it as a marketer and then sending them a follow-up email and then you sending them to the sales team and the sales team saying, hey, would you like to buy the thing? And then the person saying, yeah, we'd love to buy the thing. That's not how it works. You know that. So you need to be ready with a number of different strategies or just nurturing efforts at each stage. And what you may find and what you may have experienced is that when you're talking to a lead or a potential customer, oftentimes you're having to go through different layers. So one person who's going through the learning lead stage where they're trying to find out more information about the solution you're offering or the service you're offering, they may get to a point where they're ready to take the next step. And then they'll talk to you. And then they'll say, well, my manager needs to approve this. And then the manager might have to go back and go through their own learning stage. And so things will jump back and forth, or they might get close to a sale and say, well, I need to know more information about this. And so they may regress back into another learning stage. And so it's your job just to remember that this process will never be linear. And you just need to be prepared with how you're going to handle each part of that buyer's journey, what content you have, what kind of responses you're prepared with, and how you're able to progress them from one thing to the next, knowing that you'll eventually get to the sales opportunity, but it might not be right away. It's your job as marketers, and I'll remind this to you, and we've shared this in other webinars, it's your job as a marketer to make sure that you and your business is top of mind when the lead is ready to buy, not making, like, you're not always going to be able to attribute a direct piece of marketing to a sale. But you can say, hey, we touched this account with 20 different advertisements over the course of 3 months. We definitely helped make this sale. And so remember that it's always important to make sure that that lead is ready to buy, or that, yeah, you know what I'm saying. I'm on a phone right now. It's been a rough Monday. So, but that's where nurturing leads comes in, and it's very important that you and your business are prepared to do that with your lead nurturing strategy. So now, Ed, I think we move into the common pitfalls in the last couple of minutes, and we can move through this quickly. So Ed and I have compiled a list of a couple of gripes or pet peeves that we have when it comes to lead nurturing and lead generation that we've experienced with other businesses. So Ed, which one do you want to start off with?
I'm going to start right at the top because, one of and we've kind of referred to it here a bit, and that's overloading a lead with too much information right out of the gate. There's a number of things where you'll come into a landing page and it's a never-ending scroll. It's a continual bombardment of all of the different things that are available. And, in many instances, you might already be a very warm lead and wanting to move on to that next stage pretty quickly, but the information is getting in the way of the sale at that point. So,
yeah. So the answer here is keep it simple. One call to action, like we said. Simplify the process.
Yep.
So the next one, and this one's very near and dear to both of our hearts as marketers, spamming leads with emails and content way too often. And I think it's not just emails here. It's also, like, you guys know that you feel like your phone is listening to you all the time. And you also know that if you click on something on social media, then that ad for whatever you click on social is going to pop up over and over and over again. It's the retargeting strategies that are built into these systems. But I have a feeling that many people on the call today feel like we do, Ed, where when that happens, the more you see something, the more it feels like you're being stalked for a solution or a product, the more you want to unsubscribe.
Yeah, and it can also go even further down the rabbit hole. I think I vented about this one on a previous webinar as well. There was a business that I was really interested in, and I willingly gave my information because I wanted the 10% discount on the whatever it was. And I did not say stop sending messages after I got my first ones, because I wanted to know when there was a new sale. I wanted to know when there was more information to go and check it out. I was happy to get that. And over the holiday shopping season, they were sending out texts 2 and 3 times a day. And even though it was a company that I liked and I wanted to know about their products, that they pushed me to the point of going, no, I don't want this anymore. I was like, you guys were great, but you were just way too much with it. So, that's another way that can add. And, I probably should just jump right into my next one that I had too, because this is another one of my personal social. I've been getting a lot of social ads for different stuff that I'm a recent fitness newbie, so I'm like on these weird algorithms, and it's like a huge industry. So I'm constantly getting served with all sorts of different, fitness gear or attire or whatnot. And I'll see something and I'll go, oh, that's cool. And I'll click on it and I'll go to the web page and expect to be able to see the thing that I was just told about. Maybe it's even one specific product. And I get to the page and I'm like, cool, I'm going to learn about this product. And immediately there's a banner that overtakes the entire web experience and says, give us your email for 10% off. I'm like, I don't even know what you have yet. So, and some of the ones actually, since we put this in here, I actually had an example that was even worse the other day, where I was like, okay, no thanks, I don't want this right now. And then I kept scrolling down to learn more about the product. You get like a half a screen full down and another pop comes up over the screen and, do you want a discount? I was like, no, I want to know what you guys have to offer. No. And I said, go to another page, and then it get hit with you again. And I was, at that point, I just got in complete frustration with the product. I didn't even really care that it was something I was interested in. So making sure that you pay attention to that customer's user experience is huge. And any time you're getting in the way of them, you're getting in the way of the add to cart button.
Exactly. Marketing's great until it's not, right? That's what this
exactly.
is. Yeah. So
I think I'm sensitive to these when I see them because. Go ahead, Dave.
Oh,
all right. I was going to say, I think I'm sensitive. We're at the top of the hour. Yes. we'll move on.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we're respectful of the time of our attendees. So, Ed, why don't you do us a favor? Why don't you push out the poll question as we're getting towards the wrapping everything up? So Ed's going to push out a poll question for everybody. We want to know what you want to hear in the next webinar that we put together for you. We have a couple of options for topics that we're suggesting. It's not that we are sold on these options. We want to hear if you have any feedback. So please take a moment to just select what you want to hear, or drop something in the Q&A for us if you want to hear a specific topic covered in the future. Let us know. We'd love to hear it. And while you're answering that, just really quick to wrap up everything with lead generation and nurturing and measuring success here. It's just important to note that you track and measure success as you go. But that means you have to define what success looks like up front. What key metrics are you going to monitor? Are you going to look at conversion rates, engagement rates, form submissions, ROI based on how much you might spend on advertising? And how are you using the data to optimize your campaigns and improving results in the future, or to continually tweak it as that lead engine is working its magic in the background? And we'll refer you to another past webinar that we had, using data to guide marketing and sales strategies. Another really great one on how to use specific key data points or metrics to inform how you modify or create certain marketing strategies. And just to right size really quick for everybody, will a lead generation strategy or lead nurturing strategy work perfectly right away? No, it's not going to. And if it does work well right away, can it be better? Yes. So how long will it take to develop this? That's going to be another question that many people have. The answer is we don't know. And it's all going to be based on the strategy that you have in place, which starts with that ideal customer profile. starts with how you're going to measure things, starts with what your goal is, what's the end game with the lead nurturing, the lead generation strategy. And it might take a little bit to get it started, but that's okay. Because remember, you don't need to make the sale right away. You need to be there and be at the top of their mind when they're ready to buy or when they're ready to enroll you for your service. So we will just end by saying, be patient, remain dedicated to the campaign, to the strategy you have in place, and stay attentive to the response rates so you can continually tweak it and modify it so you're getting the most out of it. And of course, if you need any help, if you have any questions, if you want support, if you want some validation as a marketer from other marketers like yourself, MarketSHIFT@DNH.com. We'd be happy to help you out. So, Ed, I'll pass it off to you to close this down.
Sure. Yeah. We just want to thank everyone for joining us today. We've loved the questions that you've had. We loved how engaged everyone was. We hope you got as much information as you could out of this, and hope that we delivered the topic as best we could for you guys. Someone had asked earlier about on demand. This will be available on demand in 24 hours. So you will use the same link that you got to show up for today. So that will work for you. And, wanted to also remind there is the best practices checklist in the resource section and all of the market resources on dnh.com/MarketSHIFT and dnh.ca/MarketSHIFT. Our next live webinar that we're going to have will be in June. We've yet to figure out which date it's going to be, as well as topic. Has not been determined quite at this point. We have a couple different ideas, but we'd love to hear your feedback on it. So if you've answered the poll question, we'll get those answers to us. Or if you have a suggestion that you want to drop in the Q&A widget here, or if you're watching this later on demand, or you think of something later after the webinar, you can direct all of those emails to MarketSHIFT@DNH.com. And again, thank you very much. We look forward to having more of these, and I'd like to thank everyone for showing up today.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.